It's time for a new age order of women, of sisters. It's time for a new age kind of spirituality.
Welcome to the Greener Grass podcast from BlueBird Botanicals. I'm your host, Lex Pelger. Today, I am very pleased to introduce Sister Kate. She helped to found the Sisters of the Valley. She is a radical nun running a cannabis farm in California's Central Valley as a feminist eco-collective. And in fact, she's not a true nun ordained by the Catholic Church. She started using the name and the habit during the Occupy movement, and now she practices a spiritual path that predates the church. But she's gotten along with all the Catholics she's met along the way. Sister Kate, one of the most fiery and best speakers I've ever talked to, shares today about the journey that led her to this CBD farm and the thinking behind their movement. If we could put her in charge, the world might be a better place. This show is brought to you by BlueBird Botanicals, to spread education about cannabis and other things on the greener side of life. BlueBird CBD oil comes from farms in southern Colorado and is grown using only water, soil, and sunlight. Go to BlueBirdBotanicals.com for more info. Hello, everybody. I'm really happy to be here with Sister Kate of Sisters of the Valley. Thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you.
So before we start talking about all of your work there in California, can you tell us a little bit about where you started and how you got into this direction?
Well, for a short time, I had been running a cannabis collective where I was delivering cannabis medicine to the sick and dying, and it was what we call the whole plant medicine. And I could quickly see that where medical insurance didn't pay for it, and we were providing it to patients for free just because they were dying after all, and we couldn't let them suffer, that the THC cannabis business would always be a local business, and that if I could figure out a way to play in the CBD space, the non-psychoactive cannabis, then it would be an international business. And so I had set out to play in the CBD end of the business. I was an analyst in a former life, and I was a specialist on deregulating businesses. And I saw the cannabis business as another deregulating business that I thought would be wise for me to get into. And at the time, I was very poor, and I had no idea that the world would respond to us as they have. I thought it would be really, really cool. These were my big goals. If 5 women could live together and sell $30,000 worth of product each a year, then we'd make $150,000 in sales, and then we'd probably be able to keep $75,000, and then we'd all be able to still have Netflix and Showtime if we all lived together and shared our bills. It started out with very humble, like idea that here's a new deregulating business. We can play in it and not even be good at it and still probably figure out a way to support ourselves. But it turned out that one of our recipes, the topical salve, became like the Burt's Beeswax of the CBD industry, and really, catapulted us along with our message into sort of some world fame and very, very rapid growth.
That's wonderful. What a great start to such a infamous operation.
Yes, yes. It was very humble origins and humble goals. And not so humbling results. I mean, I just got back from being in Cannes last week in the south of France at the Cannes Film Festival, and someone else paid for all of that, and I would have never guessed that would come out of this either.
And that's for the new documentary about your work?
Yes, it's called Breaking Habits. And 2 years ago, a British company, documentary filmmaking company, put up £250,000 British pounds to fund a team coming over here 4 times a year, or 4 times over 18 months, to follow us around and make a documentary story about us and our background.
So what was that experience like to get started on?
That was horrible. I don't recommend it to anybody. I don't recommend the whole invasion of privacy or the fact that media people have their own idea of the story they're going to tell. So, yeah, I didn't think that was very much fun, but for the sake of getting the message out, we all very much feel like we have a calling. We aren't here for our own comfort. We aren't here for our own fame. It isn't about any of us. It is about the people on the planet. And we're in the dark hour of the planet. When 60 species a day are going extinct, when your coral reef is disappearing, you're in the dark hour of the planet. So it's time for people to get real. And we're very real. And we have a very deep and complex belief system. But it's also very simple in many ways. And it's all about putting Mother Earth and the planet and her people ahead of everything else now. And it's all about nurturing, and it's all about letting the women lead now. It's our turn. It's our time. And we believe that if you elevate the women, the men will benefit. That's just the way it works. So we're not being sexist toward the men. We're saying it's time to get serious about our obligations to the planet.
And for your belief system, because even though you're called the Sisters of the Valley, you're not actually officially with the Catholic Church, and your beliefs predate the existence of the Catholic Church.
Yes. We reached for, so let's see, when was the Catholic Inquisition at its worst? In the 800s, where like every tribe and group of spiritual people on the planet was wiped out for practicing their practices. Okay, somewhere around 800, so let's reach before that and say, what were the beliefs then? So we took the top 12 beliefs of our ancient Beguine mothers in the castles of Europe, who were the first nurses and hemp growers. In the castles of Europe, what were their top 12 beliefs? And what were the top 12 beliefs of the Incan Aztec people of this land, the soil we stand on in California, and where the 8 beliefs overlapped, we adopted those as ours. And we may follow this exact same process in developing individual beliefs for different parts of the world. We're looking at that right now. Like, what were the top 12 beliefs? We sort of drew a line in the sand and said, let's say the year 800. So what were the top 12 beliefs of the Aboriginals of New Zealand, Aotearoa? What were their top 12 beliefs? And what were the top 12 beliefs, let's say, of Sister Maria from her land in China? Because we're very mobile people, as it turns out. And so where the 8 overlap there, and we find that, I think what we're going to find is they're all very similar. Our number one belief is in organizing our lives by moon cycles and the quarter of the year. So this has far-reaching consequences for us. Every batch is identified by moon cycle. We make medicine from new moon to full moon. Our eating habits are dictated by moon cycles. We don't have birthday celebrations. Those are celebrated at the full moons. New moons are for the women. Full moons are for the men. We go vegan on the new moon and do no harm because that's our medicine-making period. And then we go sacrificial come the full moon. So our first belief, which was taken very seriously, is organizing our lives by the cycles of the moon and the quarters of the year. What this does is draw all attention back to Mother Earth, where all attention must be drawn now. Because traditional Christianity have given people permission to trash the planet, and we have to pull back on that and say, no. We have to keep the planet for the generations to come. Our second belief is in having respect for the planet and her people. So an inherent respect for the planet and her people. And then the third one is a belief that there is a mystical, magical veil and we can't see the other side. And some people call that other side God, but we've sort of demoted Creator God into third position. And we even put it at the end of that as a magical side behind the veil, and therein sits most people's God. But we don't care about that because we're not about, it's been overused. People are tired of arguing about what's invisible. It doesn't matter. Invisible babies, invisible souls, going to invisible cemeteries, going to your maker who's invisible. We think none of that, all of that baloney has kept the focus off of Mother Earth and why we have swirling plastic in the Pacific instead of growing hemp. So those are our top 3 beliefs. I won't bore you with the rest of them, but that's sort of gives you a sense of who we are and what we believe in.
That's really a beautiful process. I mean, and it's so exportable to so many different places. I personally like the moon part because for one night a month, I'm not allowed to go home because there's a moon circle downstairs, and my baby girl and my girlfriend are there, and so me and my gentleman friends go for a werewolf walk around town. But even her paying attention to the moon has made a big difference in my life, and I wouldn't have expected that. Yeah, these are just a wonderful set of beliefs, especially for someone working with the cannabis plant that needs to be so close to the earth.
Yes, and we feel we heal from working in the profession that we're working in with the cannabis plant, and we feel that our ancient mothers are with us, helping us and guiding us in order to protect the world for the generations to come. So, and it's ancient wisdom in all tribes that you walk gently with the thoughts of making your ancestor proud and making the children to come, your grandchildren and great-grandchildren, great-grandchildren, proud as well. That you're connected to the past and to the future.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of the past, who were some of the women who were most influential? I mean, I know there are some people out there perking up and want to hear some names that they could research further.
Women that influenced me in what way? All of the women I've met all of my life have influenced me. All the women who raised their children by themselves, deserted by the husband when the youngest was 18 months old, or the women have suffered the brunt of all poverty in all countries, and I draw a direct line from Christianity to disempowering women spiritually, to disempowering the planet so that it could be just used and thrown away. And I connect all those things. So, I mean, there isn't one woman, it's all the women that inspired me and inspired me to do this.
Because it's almost a feminist-based collective that you've worked out there.
Yes. Yeah, so it's so interesting that we had a graduate student in a university in Sweden come here 3 times over a year to write her graduate thesis, arguing that we're an ecofeminist religion. We had a woman who's doing her graduate thesis at Northern Kentucky University, arguing some similar kind of point. And see, when they call me and say, Sister Kate, aren't you religious? I always say we prefer to be called a cult because it's true. Cult comes from the Latin to worship, and we prefer to believe that we're worshiping the earth and what the life we've been given, and at the same time being grateful to our Creator for giving us this life and this earth. But we don't want to be called a religion. We could have gone that way. We could have formed a religion, but our attitude is that religions tend to, pick the pockets of the poor. We want to be self-sustaining. We want to create our own jobs. We don't ever want to be begging for any alms to support us. And also, we didn't want to be a nonprofit because the head of the Red Cross is a nonprofit. The head of the Red Cross makes $2.5 million a year. The NFL is a nonprofit. So all of those terms don't mean anything anymore. So we set out to create businesses and help women with cottage industries create their own businesses. So we're really on a mission so that it's like this. If women owned the stadiums, we wouldn't be naming them after Verizon or utilities. We'd be naming after some great humanitarian person who changed the way people think and the way the world operates in a better way that contributes to all the people. So we're about lifting up the women, and we're about doing that through business ownership, land ownership, cottage industries.
And so how has that gone over there in Merced, in the Central Valley of the breadbasket of California? How much resistance has there been?
I always say we're much loved by the outside world and much detested locally. I don't know if that's so true anymore, but that it felt true for a very long time. This is very a white man establishment. This is a place where the mayor can retire being mayor in one city and just move to another city and be mayor there because it's very spread out. There's like 5 million people in all the Central Valley, and I think you could fit Luxembourg in the Central Valley. So it's a big place with people very spread out. And also it's, in general, the education here is not of a very high quality. Now, I say that with exception to the fact that we just had a new University of California settle here, which they've got the highest standards. And I'm loving working with the university college kids. But still, wherever you have farm towns, you have sort of a simple mentality, and a mentality that, that whatever new thing that helps advance the planet, it has to be done for decades and decades out there before farmers will accept it. So farmers are the worst, and yet farmers is where the sisters should be, in farms growing cannabis, and we should especially be in farms where women are struggling to keep their farms, and producing this to save the farms, to save the women, and to make jobs in rural areas where it's difficult for people to find jobs. So as I said before, it's like the farm towns are like New York. If you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. We chose to take the toughest place with the worst attitude about the plant, and we're making it.
As you settled there, I was really intrigued by what I've seen about the rituals that you perform on the plant in its various stages. Can you talk about some of those practices?
Oh, well, it's really, we're not, we don't have a lot of ritual and dogma. I wouldn't say too much of it, because we believe in putting prayer into our work. We believe in coming to work, knowing your job, and doing it quietly, as if you were in a monastery, as if you were in a convent. We feel like words have been extremely overused, and that essentially I could watch a Netflix special on the melting ice caps last night, and this morning I can convince you I'm Al Gore. And words are just overused. So we value quiet, and we value putting prayer into work. But having said that, we have blessings of the plants that we do at least once a week while they're growing. We have the blessings of the hands, blessings of the kitchen, blessings of the tools, blessings of the packages. We have, as the medicine makes its way from the yard, from seedling to growing, from growing to curing, from curing to the kitchen, from the kitchen into the pots into the medicine into the jars, and then the jars labeled and into shipping. All of those processes, there's a prayerful transfer of the medicine. We always say we discourage people trying to sell our products at flea markets and open air markets, because we're sensitive to the healing energies that we've sown into this medicine. And we'll say our medicine doesn't like open air, uncontrolled temperatures. It's really, we believe those energies have to be protected just the way our ancient mothers would have protected them.
It's a very attentive process, it sounds like.
It is, but then we do some things that are fun, and counterintuitive to a capitalist society. So imagine two girls in an apartment in New York, living across the hall from each other. One places an order with us for $30 in one item, and one places an order for $300 and orders like 6 items. We send the free gift to the one who only ordered one item. And then they call us and they want to know what gives. Well, because more isn't always best. And we had to explain that when somebody orders one thing, we always send something else along with it, because we believe our ancient mothers would not have allowed that medicine to leave their sight. They would have personally carried it to the sick person, or they would have made sure someone they loved and trusted delivered it to the sick person. So since we can't do that, and we're using the post office and we're shipping all around the world, to compensate for some of those things, we give it a lot of thought. And we decided long ago from day one that if somebody ordered one thing, they get something else, so that there's some energy that's sort of escorting that medicine in honor to our ancient mothers and how they did things.
For you, taking this path of a radical nun, how did you come to the name Sister Occupy and this current vision you have?
Well, okay, so I lived in Europe for nearly a decade, came home, was very annoyed at how my country looked like a conquered nation. And when Michelle Obama in the fall of 2011 tried to talk to Congress about how unhealthy our children's meals are, they filibustered, and then so she couldn't speak. And then a week later, they met to declare pizza a vegetable, basically to make pizza look healthier than it does, statistically speaking. So that was a little over the edge for me. So when Congress declared pizza a vegetable, I declared myself a nun. I joined the Occupy movement, and I started going to every protest in the black and white Marian Catholic nun outfit. And while I was out, yes, it seemed insane to me at the time, but while I was out, it was like a 3-year sort of lesson in what the people need and where the country is right now. And in that process, I had so many people encourage me to formalize it, from business owners to lawyers and doctors, and I had to actually pay attention to what the people were saying, and what they were really saying is it's time for a new age order of women, of sisters. It's time for a new age kind of spirituality, but that's mainstream enough and hardcore enough that it has a chance against the sort of right-wing traditional old energies. I mean, really, if you listen to Bill Maher, he's always dissing on religion, and I'd love to go on his show and say to him, look, dude, until the liberal left and the progressive left organizes itself so that they have an alternative for the people, we're always going to have our pulpits manned by the far right. So it's time that the liberal left take to the pulpit, and I don't like it. It's not comfortable. It's not my Gemini nature to be in the middle of the attention all the time like this, but it's a calling. I'm doing it. I'm doing it because it needs to be done, and the other women who are with me, they're doing it because it needs to be done.
And so where do you see the future? How would you like to see this movement grow?
I would like to see a couple of things happen. Of course, that we have weed nuns, sisters, and brothers in every province across the planet. Everywhere that we have a chaplain in a police department, we have a spiritual representative from the Sisters of the Valley. Everywhere where there's a sign over City Hall that says, "In God we trust," we change it to "In Goddess we trust." Have I said enough?
Yeah, it sounds nice, but they might burn you at the stake.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think those times have left. I think it's too late. I think the planet, with or without the Sisters of the Valley, with or without us and what we do, it's happening. I mean, look around. It's amazing. And I don't think the young women are going to stop now until there's a period of time where the women are in full majority, in full control, while we put the wheels back on the car, while we try to set things straight again. I think there's going to be a bit of a pendulum swing. I don't think it's going to do any harm because the men are with us already. The millennials are with us. The young men are with us. The only one that's going to aggravate are the old white guys. That's the only one that's going to be aggravated from this pendulum swing, and frankly, they deserve it.
So as people push back against your work, what are some of the most convincing pieces of your argument that seems to resonate with the people who would be most against it?
I don't think there's anybody against what we're doing, actually. I think that Putin has his little bots out there that try to make fusses everywhere they go. But, I mean, anybody who looks at what we're doing, then they understand us. And the pushback is more that the local people, the local lawmakers here are so afraid of cannabis businesses that they've outlawed cannabis businesses. So that's, even though we're paying federal income tax and state income tax and federal payroll tax and state payroll tax, state unemployment tax and sales tax and every kind of tax you can imagine, and we're legal in everything we do, the papers like to say we're illegal because we don't have the permission from the county to operate a business on this little farm that we're doing it on. And though they haven't given us permission, they have neither made us stop. So we're sort of in a no man's land here, but I'm kind of ignoring them and they're ignoring me, and we seem to all be okay with it.
That's excellent. That's a great spot to be.
Well, what it is it's a lesson to other women around the planet that they need to just start growing CBD. Let me tell you this. I know that our sheriff's department has seized product going out and seized supplies coming in and tested it. And they determined that everything we're doing is non-psychoactive and won't get anybody high and is basically under the international guidelines for what's considered hemp. So because they know that we're not getting anybody high, there's no high products passing through our door, that this is truly the aspirin of the cannabis plant, and all we're doing is creating spiritual, honorable jobs for men and women from the area, they're leaving us alone. So to me, it's a message to the women in Greece and the women in England and the women in Canada, just start growing it. Let's start doing it, ladies, because don't wait around for permission. If you wait around for permission, Big Pharma's going to be in. We have to be bold, and we have to get started, and we have to do it. And I tell women, the other thing is there's no difference between what this plant looks like when you grow CBD and THC. So imagine the thieves. If all the women on the planet grew CBD in their backyards and in the windowsills, the thieves would steal it, try to sell it as cannabis that gets you high, and they'd get hurt, and they would be done. They would only do it one time. and they'd be done because no one would get high from this. And so it would completely foil the black market. It would foil the thieves, and we'd make a big step forward in women reclaiming their right to grow their own plant medicine for their own families.
Yeah, bringing back that tradition of female growers of a female plant, going back to Mountain Girl and much farther back than that.
Yes.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to share about your work with us today, Sister Kate. It's wonderful stuff, and you speak about it so well.
Oh, well, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Greener Grass is a BlueBird Botanicals podcast. Their CBD oil supports a healthy body and a strong endocannabinoid system. They've got friendly customer service who can answer any of your questions, and the number is right there at the top of their webpage. But, per the FDA, they won't be able to make any medical claims for these nutritional supplements. That's also the reason you'll hear little about CBD on this show. There's no need for us to add more evidence about CBD when a simple Google search will give you more than you can read in a month of Sundays. So this show covers the cannabis world and more with editorial freedom from BlueBird Botanicals. Thanks for joining the Greener Grass podcast. As always, our audio alchemist is Matt Payne. The Gypsy Jazz theme music comes from Brett Van Donsel. Our beautiful bird sounds are courtesy of Lang Elliott. And I'm your host, Lex Pelger, wishing you a bright green day.